Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're taking a look at another choice in the micro pistol optic space, and one that you've seen on the channel a couple times before. This is the Swampfox Sentinel, and it's a recent entry into the category. Today we're going to take a deeper look at it, go over the specs and the features, and then I'll tell you a couple things I like about it, and maybe a few things I don't like so much about it. Now, before we get going with the Sentinel, the usual couple of notes. Number one, I leave links to everything I talk about in my videos, including the Sentinel, on the blog links page, which is always linked in the description somewhere down here. Number two, we're not looking at any firearms today, nor are there any firearms present anywhere around me. And the space that we're in is dedicated just for firearms. And finally, number three, last but certainly not least, if you appreciate what I'm doing here, consider throwing me a super thanks. From the optics to the guns to the ammo to the lights, everything you see on the channel is funded out of my own pocket, so any and every little bit definitely helps. As gun manufacturers produce more and more models that are optic ready and optic cut slides from the factory, optic companies have responded with more and more options for slide mounted red dots. A little while ago we took a look at the Crimson Trace Rad Micro Pro, and today we've got the Sentinel from Swampfox, and that's their entry into this segment. Just like the Rad Micro Pro, the Sentinel comes in at the more affordable end of the price spectrum. This version has a 3 MOA green dot with a manual brightness adjustment, but it also comes in a 3 MOA red dot configuration, also with manual or auto adjustment. MSRP for the manual adjust Sentinel is $250, but it can always be found for less than that. I got this one for a little under $200 at Brownells. The Sentinel comes with a 7075 aircraft grade aluminum body with an IPX7 water resistance rating. The Sentinel comes with a 7075 aircraft grade aluminum body with an IPX7 water resistance rating. It measures 1.61 inches long and 0.91 inches wide and 0.94 inches tall. These measurements are all not including the optic plate here. The body of the Sentinel starts right there. The Sentinel uses the same RMSC footprint that the Crimson Trace Rad Micro Pro uses. Inside that aircraft grade aluminum body is an LED that projects that 3 MOA dot onto the coated glass lens. In this case, it's kind of mirror coated because it's a green dot. The Sentinel has 10 levels of brightness adjustment along with motion sensing power saving, or shake awake as I like to call it. Inside the Sentinel box, along with the standard paperwork and documentation and the ever important Swampfox sticker, Swampfox also throws in a rubber cover for the optic, a bunch of different mounting screw options, a turret adjustment and mounting tool with the Swampfox logo on it. This comes with all of their optics, and a bottom plate for the optic that's already on here because I've already got it mounted. They also throw in a battery in the package, and that is a CR2032 battery. Oh, and a cleaning cloth. Can't forget about the cleaning cloth. Now, speaking of the battery loads into the Sentinel from the bottom, so the optic needs to be dismounted when you change the battery. Swampfox quotes battery life at 2 years of like real world use, and based on my experiences with other Swampfox optics, I feel confident that the Sentinel will last at least the usual year that I go in between battery changes. Adjustment on the Sentinel is handled by turrets on the top and on the right side of the optic there. Elevation adjustment is handled from the top turret, and windage adjustment is handled from the right side turret. Again, Swampfox throws in that adjustment tool inside the box, but these turrets are just slotted, so any small screwdriver or anything like that will work just as well. Now, just like with other Swampfox product, they do not give a per click adjustment of like how many MOA each click the adjustment turret has. Instead, they tell you that they have a total available adjustment range of 70 MOA. Now, for things that I like about the Swampfox Sentinel, the first thing that I like is, as usual, and as longtime viewers of the channel will know, shake awake. I love the shake awake feature. I think it's a great battery saving feature, and in my opinion, it's something that you have to have on pistol optics. Shake awake, for those that don't know, basically is a function that turns off the emitter when the optic has been sitting there inactive for a certain amount of time. But as soon as you pick it up, as soon as it senses any sort of motion, it turns itself back on. This helps to save battery life by turning the optic off when it's not being used. There's never been a time where I go to pick up this optic regardless of what weapon it's been mounted on, and the optic isn't turned on. It's always right there, ready to go. It is worth it to note, though, that Shake Awake is only available on the manual adjustment model, which we have here. There is a model of the Sentinel that features auto brightness adjustment, and that one is always on. It does not turn off, and it does not have shake. Now, this leads me into the second thing that I like about this Sentinel, or this Sentinel in particular. That's the manual brightness adjustment. If you've watched any of my other videos, you already know that I prefer manual adjustment to automatic adjustment. This is because there are certain situations, like say shooting from a dark room into a light one, that automatic adjustment just doesn't ever set the dot at the right brightness for me. I understand the reasoning behind automatic adjustment, but I just prefer a manual adjustment. In this case, I just set the brightness with whatever brightness I like, and I just kind of leave it there. Other optics like the Holosuns have a lockout feature, which is really nice. This does not have that. So if you do happen to bump this, you can just use the buttons on either side to adjust it. The buttons are really nice. They stick out a little bit and they're rubberized, which makes them easy to use. The last thing that I like about the Sentinel is, of course, the price. At $200 street price and sometimes less, this comes in at the lower end of the price spectrum in terms of pistol optics, and in that space, there isn't a lot to compete with, and I think the Sentinel packs a lot of features into its price point. Now, just like everything else on this channel, nothing is perfect, and the Sentinel is obviously no exception. I've got a couple nits to pick with this, starting with the brightness adjustment buttons that I just talked about. While, like I said, they're rubberized and easy to use, they do stick out a little bit too much for me, and I really wish that Swampfox included a button lockout feature with buttons that are like this prominent. On an optic this small, it's too easy to accidentally push an adjustment button and like manipulate the reticle when you're trying to like run the slide or do something like that. Sometimes the reticle will be too dim when I'm practicing with this because my hand comes over this and I accidentally bump that down brightness button. A button lockout feature would let the user adjust the brightness and lock it in so that any accidental presses like that won't mess with the brightness. The second thing that I do not like about the Sentinel is that bottom loading battery tray. Replacing the battery in this means taking the optic off and then having to re-zero it after you replace the battery. I know that this is common with micro reflex optics. I'm pretty sure the Rad Micro Pro was like that as well. But I mean, there's that Holosun 407K and that EPS carry that we took a look at recently, and that tray design is definitely the superior design here. And finally, one last thing that bugs me about basically all Swampfox pistol optics that I alluded to earlier are the adjustment turrets. The one big thing for me is that there's no way to determine a per click MOA adjustment value like on other optics. Like a Holosun will tell you it's like X amount of MOA per click. Swampfox optics and the Sentinel in particular don't have this, and it adds a little bit of frustration to the fact that there is very little to no tactile feedback in the turrets when you go to adjust them. It ends up making zeroing the Sentinel and other Swampfox optics kind of a chore and, again, just taking a little longer than they need to be. Now, if you combine the fact that you need to re-zero this optic every time you take it off or on with the fact that it's a little less pleasant to zero, that might be a deal breaker for some people. So overall, while it's definitely not perfect, for the $200 I paid, I think that the Sentinel is a decent micro pistol optic. I'm not sure I like it better than the EPS carry, or more to the point, the 407K at this kind of price point, right? So I might do actually a head-to-head comparison between them, and maybe throw in that EPS carry as kind of a wild card to compare all of them. If that's something that interests you, make sure that you're subscribed and you've got the bell rung. Throw me a like or a comment if you appreciate what I'm doing, because it really helps me out with the algorithm. That's all I've got for you this time, so until next time, stay safe.